Toronto's controversial former mayor, the late Rob Ford, could soon have a football stadium named after him. So, wow.
Okay. Interesting.
We have one brave soul in the front clapping. Listen, according to the motion put forward at City Council, Rob Ford had two passions, representing his constituents and football. And during his 4 years as mayor, Ford made headlines, we know, worldwide for admitting to, among things, smoking crack while in office. So therefore, should we name a stadium after Rob Ford, Teddy?
Oh, goodness. Well, based on the response, I'm about to become very unpopular right out of the gate. So I do have mixed feelings about it, but if I was on City Council and I had to vote one way or the other, I would ultimately vote in favor of allowing this honor to go forward. And here's why. Look at the change.org petition. One of the things that it cites is the fact that Ford engaged in, like on a policy level, that he passed policies or did not pass policies that were unpopular. I don't think that's a reason to deny somebody this honor, because for every policy that he passed you disagree with, somebody might agree with it.
Agreed with it. Yeah.
And if we're going to limit the people that we honor in terms of naming public places after them to people who have universally popular policies, it'd be a pretty short list. So in that respect, I don't agree with making that a part of it. The part that I am okay with making an issue is some of the very objectionable things that Mayor Rob Ford said during his tenure in office. He said some offensive things, as did former Mayor Mel Lastman, who also has a giant square named after him. I'm not excusing either of what they said, but it is something to consider. But I'm okay with making that an issue. But then the other, obviously, the elephant in the room, the thing that the petition...
Is it
yes,
crack?
it's the crack. It's the crack.
Did you just say it?
It's the crack.
And crack.
It's the crack.
And the petition doesn't mention his drug use. However, here's the thing. We talk a lot about mental health and addiction, and I think we talk a pretty big game. And one of the things that we say is that nobody, no matter wealth or power, is immune from the potential of addiction. Rob Ford personified that. He was an incredibly flawed individual.
Then why not name a treatment center after him and not a football stadium?
Well, it's a great point. You know what? I actually think that's a great happy medium, but it does not negate his accomplishments, and one of those accomplishments was mentoring a lot of underprivileged youth on the football field. And I also think that we have to, if we accept that anybody can be a victim of addiction, then we have to include him in that, and I don't think it should negate his accomplishments. So to me, at the end of the day, naming a football field after him feels like an okay honor with caveats. That's where I'm at.
With caveats, that's all very nicely said.
With caveats.
I just think this is interesting that we're working backwards from the way we normally do. Normally, throughout history, something's named after someone, and then history passes, history is reevaluated, and we're like, oh no, we're gonna change this name.
Yes.
But going into this, we know what Rob Ford has done for better or for worse.
That part.
So it's a strange thing. But then I flip-flop too, because I wonder, we're not asking to rename the CN Tower the Rob Ford Tower. This is like a very local, community-driven football stadium, correct? And I wonder if context matters in that sense. Like, that was his neighborhood.
That's my neighborhood.
That's your neighborhood.
Where I live, yeah.
So does that, like, how does that, I guess maybe you shouldn't be asking us, how does the neighborhood feel?
I'll tell you a little bit about how they feel.
Yeah.
I live in the middle of Ford Nation. That's where I live. Yeah. And even though politically I'm on very different places than him and his brother, the community rides or dies for the Fords. And I will tell you, when I drive around, I'm always surprised by that because the community looks at those brothers, and Rob in particular, very differently than maybe some of us do, even though I didn't live there at the time that he was actively mayor, but I live there now, and they look at him as one of the guys from the streets that was, you know, playing football, and even though we think he's so privileged, and he was, let's be honest, you know, a millionaire family, father super successful, the boys inherited a lot, you too, Rob, but also they were, Rob in particular, he was bullied a lot because he was an overweight kid. He always felt like he had low self-esteem. Mark Toohey, who's, you know, a great political commentator in the city, wrote a book about this. And he really said, listen, he always felt like he was the underdog. So he really relates to the kids in the neighborhood who had nowhere to go. Football saved them, kept them out of trouble. That's the neighborhood, and that is the stadium.
Wow.
But what about on the international level? Because when Rob was making headlines, I was in Europe, and everywhere I went, people were like, what's with your mayor? And I think it'd be very interesting if we do this for the rest of the world to go, are you guys serious? The same guy who made headlines across the globe for all of his gaffes and horrible behavior, this is the guy you're naming a football stadium after? I don't understand why we haven't come to this time where you just understand, stop naming schools, stadiums, streets after people.
Okay.
Pick the local borough everything else, just stay away from naming it after people. It's problematic,
Do you know what?
you mentioned.
I don't mind that.
Do you know what?
Right?
Recently, the American Ornithological Society, they study birds.
Yeah.
They recently announced they're changing all the North American birds named after people to names that are just descriptive.
It's just a smarter, safer thing to do. And listen, you all make really good points, but I think the feeling, okay, when you think about Rob Ford, do you think about football? That's my point. Why don't we use Michael Pinball Clemens if we really want to name, or Doug Flutie, or Damon Allen, people who did great things for the game of football here in Canada.
They don't have a connection to the community. They don't have a connection to the community.
Wait a second, you cannot say that because you do not know. Michael
I
Pinball,
live there, I do know.
No, Mike, you can't say you're not a young football player. What I'm saying is you have to talk to Michael Pinball Clemens. He does a lot of stuff in different communities.
Yes.
So you can't say they don't do that because you don't know. So it's a Damon Allen as well, someone that I know very well. So if they really want to name a football stadium and encourage young men to do great things and young women to do great things on the field, why not name it after people who've actually done that and leave Rob Ford to do something else? Maybe a treatment center, maybe something else.
We gotta move on.
Also, we should mention Olivia Chow, the current mayor, is also supporting this as well, this naming, which is an interesting
Well, that's
note.
very
as well.
interesting.
Hey there, what did you think? Drop your comments below and join the conversation. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you can find more on everything from food and fashion to pop culture and current events. See you soon.